The Lee County Board of Commissioners will come to order. I'd like to welcome everyone that's here and ask if you would join us in the invocation, which will be given by Mrs. Shook, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and ask you to stand with us. Thank you.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, as we meet today as local elected officials, we pause to thank you for all of our many blessings. We are especially thankful that we live in a nation where our personal freedoms and liberties are protected under the Constitution and where the citizens participate in a form of government in which they get to elect their representatives. Give us the wisdom and knowledge to guide us in our actions and deliberations today. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, are there...
We're not on the air yet, Mr. Chairman.
That's a good time to do that.
We are now.
Very good.
Let's go.
I would like to ask if there are any additions or changes to the agenda at this time.
I just have one on the last set of minutes as a correction on my vote that I'd like to have the clerk change.
Okay.
I'll take it up with the clerk. It wasn't the clerk's fault.
Yeah. Did you, has that been satisfied?
No, I said I will.
Okay.
I'll take it up with her.
Very good. Now, is there anything else to the agenda that anyone would like to speak to? Okay. If not, do I hear a motion that the agenda be approved? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Now to the approval of the consent agenda. You've had an opportunity to look that over. Do I hear a motion that it be approved?
So moved.
The consent agenda has been moved for approval. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. We will now move to public comments. We have one speaker today, Mr. Clark.
Keith Clark, 212 Acorn Drive, Sanford, North Carolina. Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, there's been a lot of interest in the closing of events and the events that preceded it and comments in the paper. I wanted to let you know that they are holding a letter to the editor from me, which if they do not publish, will be published on my blog on Thursday. And in the meantime, if people would like to see a representation of that, the address http://tinyurl.com/offagenda will provide insightful information into what took place. It relates, of course, to my topic today, which is some quick comments on your issue of ethics, in which I made a presentation earlier. As I feared, what came from the Institute of Government was a bunch of sound and fury and pages signifying nothing. I would like to direct your attention to a couple of the items you might just jot down, or I can pass around to the clerk or something. Page 130, Section 5, in my opinion, would require a needed revision of your public information policy. Page 167 suggests that in refraining from political office, and I think it is inappropriate for it addresses the right of political activity, but it is appropriate, in my opinion, for an individual to hold a political office in a political party and be a commissioner, and I'll give you an example why. The example would be email that comes to your personal email address. It relates to the scope of your duties. how do you make a decision between whether that's coming in your job as a political advocate or in your job as a commissioner? In some cases it would be clear, in some cases it would not. Page 168 says you should not make pledges of conduct that would affect your performance on the board and your ability to give each issue its fair and due consideration. Current Rule 2.7 says you should not work to influence the election or public office. A little unrealistic, I think. It says that I make two suggestions. That when the board discusses this, that they identify 3 respected public people to participate in that discussion with you and to give you the perspective. Certainly not myself, I said respected people. And finally, I think you need to consider an independent ethics board to screen any complaints first. Otherwise, there is the prospect, there's not a lot of teeth in this law, but there's a prospect of I'll look after you if you'll look after me being the perception. And I feel like that a small board, again, of about 3 people that would take any complaints and say if your time is, if it's worth your time to take the complaint or not. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The next part of our program is old business, and it's page 23 through 92 in your agenda booklet pertaining to documents to the financing of the Lee County High School renovation project. Mr. Crumpton, would you speak to us about that?
Yes, sir. There are actually 4 agreements within this document. The first is a financing agreement and deed of trust between the county and BB&T. The second is a project fund agreement between the county and BB&T. The third agreement is a construction, rehabilitation, and acquisition agreement that the county and the Lee County Board of Education has to approve. And then the fourth is the lease agreement between the county and the Lee County Board of Education. The last 2 agreements have already been approved by the Board of Education, and a copy of their resolution is part of the 70 pages here. One resolution will approve all of these and give the authority to the chairman to sign the agreements. We need an addition to the motion that would designate Mr. Hoyle as the deputy county clerk, so that next week when the closing will occur on the 11th, Mr. Hoyle can use the county seal to attest the signatures. Ms. Lee will be on vacation next week, so a motion to approve the resolution and designate Mr. Hoyle as deputy county clerk.
Okay. The motion has been made to approve with Mr. Hoyle as the deputy county clerk. Is there any discussion?
If for some reason Mr. Hall was in court, would there be a delegate or substitute?
Mr. Hoyle will be in court. He'll be here at 1 o'clock on Tuesday. That's where he'll need to be.
That's beautiful, and I appreciate that.
So on page 30, the second paragraph, there's 2 amounts in brackets. Is that? What am I looking at here? The collateral is or includes fixtures document, I guess, but it's on page 30 of our packet.
Right. The agreements were written with both loan amounts, since the agreements had to be to us before we approved the higher amount. So the agreement that we sign next week will be with the higher amount, the $22,678,064.
Is there any other question or discussion that anyone would like to bring up at this time?
I got one.
Okay.
Same one I had. If it's not available, will it require, or does it require having a delegate or someone else, or does it come back to the board? The signing.
No, you have to designate someone to be able to use the seal. So if you want to back up to Mr. Hoyle, then I would recommend that you add Dale as a deputy as well, so you'd have 2 deputies. Would you like to amend your motion, Kelly?
Sure.
Motion's been made and the amendment has been heard and noted. All in favor of the motion as amended, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
We're voting on what?
This is voting
So
on
approve the
On
documents.
the,
On
yeah.
this document.
Yes, ma'am.
So if I vote yes on this, I'm voting for the higher amount, which I was not in favor of. Is that correct?
You're voting to approve the documents, and I guess indirectly, yes.
Okay.
I would say yes.
So, no.
No, one no. Any more no's? Okay, the motion passes 6-1. Thank you very much. Under new business, we're going to have an update on the 2010 census by Mr. Kovacic. Aye.
You did fine.
Could you help me?
Kavaskets.
Okay, very good. I'll
But
accept that.
I
That was
answered
close.
I answered to just about anything.
Okay,
3 times.
welcome.
It works for me.
All right.
We are in the middle of it. We have just finished up the mail back, and we've done pretty good in that respect. In 2000, we had 57% of those that were mailed letters to return those. This time, 10 years later, we've had 72%. That's a 15% increase, but it actually is 50% more people have sent it back. We had 12,000 people send it back last in the 2000 census, and we've had 18,000 people here. We have a larger population, so that 15% is actually 50% more in the mailback. So we're at 72%. On Saturday, May 1st, we have had, the enumerators are out in the field. We have a team, 6 crews that are in Lee County, 12 to 18 people each, that will be working from mid-afternoon till dusk every day, Saturday and Sunday included. So if you get a knock after 9 o'clock or after it's dark, it's not the census. But if you haven't mailed it back, we will certainly, I say we because we've been working with the census for the last 10 years. Mr. Reeves and Mr. Pascal knows even from the 2 challenges that we had from the number of residential units that were challenged immediately in 2001 till the estimates in 2005. So we've been working diligently. We are ready for this. We're as ready now as I think we've ever been.
As a, I guess, a precautionary measure, can you identify how these folks will appear, what kind of identification they'll have, or what they'll?
Yes, they will have a tag similar to our county tag. It will not have a picture on it, but they will have it around their neck. It will say U.S. Census on it. Their vehicles will have, in at least 3 different windows, tags that show, there'll be a white and red sign that identifies them as a U.S. Census. Most of them will be working in pairs. They will not be by themselves. We have met with the sheriff's office and the city police departments. If you don't feel that, or if you don't feel who is at the door is a census person, feel free to ask them for information. They are allowed to put their IDs underneath the door, and if you're still not satisfied, just call the sheriff or the police department, and they will come out and check them out for you.
Okay, so technically, we won't have a list of names. We'll just have people working that have ID. But, and I'm extremely concerned about the seniors. Once the door is open, sometimes the situation presents itself. So we won't have a list of names. We'll just have people that show up with badges, and if we're uncomfortable and there's enough time, we'll just call either the sheriff or the police department.
Right. If you are uncomfortable, do not open the door.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that's just too
Right.
late. They just go to the door and open.
Right, but they will be coming back. They are able to come back at least 6 times to one particular residence. So hopefully you send it back because they will be looking for you.
No, I know we needed money, so I sent mine back, but here's the, so do you know who those people will be?
No, I've just met the area supervisor and the field supervisor. I'm certain that we can get a list of names if we need to. Okay.
Do they get safety training for themselves?
I'm certain that they do. They've been through extensive training.
Well, I mean, you know. Okay.
And then they're only going to be out during daylight hours, and they will be in teams.
Okay.
I'm sure they have the sheriff's office number too, and the police departments.
You love to see that.
Any other questions?
I have a question for Don real quick. The roughly 7,000, I guess, dwelling units or addresses that have not responded.
That's correct.
Now, did you provide the database for the households to them?
Yes,
Or-
we actually went through this program twice in the last 10 years. It's called LUCA, Local Update of Census Addresses, where the census provides us what they were showing for residential units. We merge it and do quality control with what we're showing for residential. We send it back. They send people out in the field to verify what we said, and then they say, well, we've either accepted this or not. The first time that we ran it, we added almost 1,200 residential units that they did not have in their system. They didn't accept them all, and so we did it again a couple years later, and we added almost 300 additions. But we know where they didn't accept, and meeting with the area managers and the field supervisor, they know where they didn't accept, and there's no question that these residential units actually exist. So we are very, very close in what the census shows as a residential unit and what we show as a residential unit.
And so they have a database, or they have a list of the roughly 7,000 addresses that have not responded.
That is correct.
And that's who they go see.
That is correct.
So if you responded, you shouldn't expect anybody to come to your door anyway. should
That is
you?
correct, unless they have a question about the responses that
Okay.
we sent.
All right.
So, but that's correct, and we've actually provided them with maps, blowing up certain areas that they may have trouble finding data in, large mobile home parks and that type of thing. We also provided them, we did a density kernel on where our bilingual or Hispanic people live, so that they can be much more efficient in sending out their bilingual people on exactly where they need to go for those. So we're still helping them, even though it's happening. We want a good count. We don't want to do what we did again the last 10 years.
Other questions, comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Mr. Kovaskits. Kits. I got the end of it right, all right. I sort of blew that, but I was going to say it perfectly and stammered over it. The next item of business under new business is a recognition that Mr. Crumpton is going to take us through.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This Friday, we have our annual Employee Awards Banquet, and this person will not be able to be there Friday. So I decided to put this on the agenda. I was going to recognize him Friday in front of his peers, but he probably thought he was going to get out of it, but now he's decided to bring him up here in front of y'all. But it's not very often that we have an employee that receives a national award. Tommy, come on up to the mic. Tommy Brooks was named the national outstanding district professional for the soil and water conservationists across the country. He went to Orlando and accepted the award. And give you a little background here from his press release. Mr. Brooks was recognized by the board for his technical and educational expertise, that he has served his local district well. He is a 30-year, he would have been awarded the 30-year award on Friday, which we'll get to him at another time, but in his check. I'm sure he'll want his check too. 30-year employee of the Lee Soil and Water Conservation District, located here in Sanford. And Tommy, as he is called by his colleagues, serves on the National Resources Conservation District State Technical Committee, has served as president of North Carolina's Conservation District Employees Association and president of the Regional Association, has fulfilled a 3-year term as a NCDEA board member. So I know Tommy's very active in his national and state associations and has been doing this job for a long time. And
Attempting to.
I thought we should recognize him for his achievement.
You honor us. We've seen much of you, but these recognitions and your participation is just really outstanding. Would you care to speak to us?
It's something that's, well, when you've done this or attempted to do this as long as I have, it's something that's sort of become near and dear to me. When I started my job 30 years ago, or now a little over 30 years, the numbers of conservation district employees or local county employees working with Soil and Water Conservation Districts their numbers were very small, not only in North Carolina but across the country. There's between 200 and 300 local government employees in North Carolina working with Soil and Water Districts now, and between 7,000 and 8,000 across the country. And through my 30 years of being involved with state and regional and national employee associations, I've gotten to know, not all of them, of course, but a good number of them. And it helps with mentoring when you're at meetings, networking, and I've picked up a great deal of information just comparing notes with my counterparts from another state, finding out that yes, we do very similar things, and in certain instances we do the same thing, but we don't always do it the same way. Sometimes they like the way they found out that we do it in North Carolina, and sometimes I pick up something from them that I bring back and say to North Carolina, hey folks, another state's doing it this way, let's try this. And so it's proved very valuable to me and my counterparts all across the state. Having done this as long as I have, I sort of feel it as a responsibility to, as new employees come on across the state, to sort of welcome them aboard and mentor to them if I can. Not that I necessarily have a great deal of information to give them, but that information I have, I'm more than willing to give it to them because information's free, it doesn't cost you a thing. I checked with the National Employee Association. This recognition program has been ongoing for several years now, and of the between 7,000 and 8,000 employees across the country, there's only 11 of us that have ever received this award. I'm only the second person in North Carolina that's ever gotten it.
Just one observation. It seems like you really love your work.
After 30 years, you better.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's remarkable. May we congratulate you by shaking your hand.
There you go, Tom. Appreciate it. Good job. Good job. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're going to stick around for a few more years too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that writing is-
You didn't even make fun.
Chairman, he also rendered great service to us on our planning board.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that.
Thank you.
The next item under our agenda is for Mr. Crumpton and Mrs. Minter to talk with us about the budget. And the floor is yours.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we gave you the informal presentation at the budget workshop. I'll give you the more formal presentation here. As required by the Local Budget and Fiscal Control Act and my duties as the county's budget officer, it's my responsibility to present the Lee County's fiscal year 2010-2011 recommended budget. Now the county will go through the process of reviewing the budget, hold a public hearing on May 17th at 6 o'clock, and sometime in June pass the budget. We actually have it scheduled to be passed June 7th, but it may take longer than that, or may not. The general fund summary. In 2011, our total tax base is $4.655 billion, a decrease from the 2010 tax base. Leave the tax rate at 75 cents. Total tax revenue of $34.2 million. 1 penny will generate $456,190 on the tax rate. Sales tax revenue budgeted $8.58 million, bringing our total budget for next year at $60.6 $100,000. Line 2, please. Where does the money come from? Before this morning, I took a look at this chart, and the ad valorem taxes and the local option sales tax continues to grow as a percentage of our budget. The two together now account for 69% of our revenues, as the other revenues that we receive, especially transfers, intergovernmental revenues, of 15%. You see that percentage declining, mainly from grants and program revenues from the state. The next chart is the property tax base growth. You can see that through the early 2000s, where our tax base was and where it grew to. And in the last 2 years, how it has flattened out during the recession and actually declined this year. The local option sales tax, you see we had quite a bit of growth again in the first part of the 2000s. In 2004, 2005, we had a slight drop when we had a little bump in the recession, in the economy there, but you can see the significant growth, and then all of a sudden the tail off the last 3 years. Not all that is recession related. Some of it is the Medicaid swap with the state, but all in all, quite a bit of a change. And then in the 2010-2011, we have the addition of the Article 46. So, and the complete elimination of Article 44, which the state took. Fund balance summary. At the end of June 30, 2009, our fund balance percentage was 19.37. Although the raw dollars didn't go up that much as our budget decreased, our percentage went up quite a bit, over the 18%. So we, during the year, recommended we spend cash for the Stanley Dam renovations to bring that number back down at under 18%. We're projecting on June 30th, 2010, we'll be at 17.07%. Where is our money going? Lee County schools make up the largest percentage, 27.68% to their current operations and current capital. The next is our human services, DSS, health department, senior services, and more. A big percentage goes to public safety, and next year you'll see that debt service will be at 12.27%. Our financial policy says it will not go over 15%. So we're, even with adding the high school debt, we're still below the 15%. Next one, please. We always like to talk about what's mandated and what we're spending. We're estimating that 80.2% of our expenditures comes through the mandated programs. Now, not all expenditures within those mandated programs are mandated, but a good chunk is. And the big four are sheriff, health, social services, and our debt service. Discretionary spending, 19.8%. Colts, cooperative extension, youth services, parks and recreation. I have to add senior services in there, it's not on there, but those are really the biggest departments in that discretionary spending. As a summary of general fund expenditures, 1.29% decrease. Should say increase there, should it not?
Yeah.
Sorry. Should
Last
be
night.
increase in general fund expenditures. We do not have a COLA for employees, but we do have a COLA reserve of $150,000. We held back the COLA in case projections did not come to fruition in the first quarter, and we'll review that at that point. The required 1.55 percentage point increase in retirement contribution, the total there was about $190,000 for county departments. No increases in funding of outside agencies at this time. We do have a little bit of increase to help the community college and Lee County schools help with their increase in retirement and health insurance. We put $350,000 into the capital reserve fund contribution. That's actually a reduction from our policies Our policies would have called for a little over 600,000. Hopefully that's a one-year exception. General government, 1.15% increase from last year. Once again, most of that is has to do with the with the retirement increase. IT system administrators recommended in January of 2011. It's one of two new positions in the budget. This is a position we've been trying to fund for the last couple of years to help IT, and as that department's budget and responsibility grows, we really need to put that person in place. We've talked about the retiree health insurance plan. In previous meetings, the actual reduction was 1.0% instead of a 13% with the changes that we made. Workers' compensation costs remained flat. We actually had a rate reduction, but when we estimated employee expenses for next year, with the 4 new grant positions that are in the sheriff's department, it actually made workers' comp costs neutral for next year. In general services, we have some increases for building improvements and capital that we need to do. One of the big ones is we have to update the fire alarm system at the library. So for safety reasons, we have to do that. The big increase next year is in public safety. Most of what is in the sheriff's budget for increases is capital, as we try to get back into the vehicle replacement program and some other things that he's trying to do. We're also assuming the costs for the gang and drug officer positions. He asked for 3 new positions. In addition to those 2 positions, I did not recommend any.
I mean,
Yes, sir.
it just seems that those 2 positions, if they were funded to be new positions.
Well, they're actually already in the budget.
Yeah, but the conditions. Never mind, we're wrong.
I agree with him.
I'm looking for her help. She's disagreeing with it.
You're not disagreeing. You're telling
I
me
mean, you could look at it as those are new positions that we are now funding
right.
and stuff. We just didn't put them on the new position schedule since they were already in the budgeted
Right.
system.
I didn't, because it does not increase our head count.
There you go.
The reason I didn't classify it as new positions is it doesn't increase the head count for the county, because they're already there, and they're already included in the count.
Under normal
It was an either-or
circumstances.
situation.
Funding purposes was something different.
For funding purposes, yes, it's an increase.
Right.
And, the grants we're actually paying half of the cost, and now we're picking up the full cost. Other changes in public safety, we're taking the part-time fire inspector to a full-time fire inspector, and the net increase for the department with other changes is only $3,713. Economic and physical development, 4.52% increase. We also have planning, community development in this area. Of this department, $891,856 is in incentive payments. And that number goes
I
down
noticed
next year.
In the budget, you didn't have Parkdale and Red Wolf on there. Do those not kick in this next budget year?
I don't think they had everything in place on January 1st, so it did not make the list. I think that's my explanation.
Correct. It was not on the list that I have. So.
It was not on the list.
So that means that they're not going to get an incentive in the next fiscal year, right?
That's correct. And actually, I think Parkdale, did not have some of their equipment active on January 1st either, so they were asking for some help in their current valuation, which I don't know where that stands. I have to ask Dwayne how that went on Friday. Once again, Human Services makes up 24.2% of the general fund budget. In the Health Department, expenditures are down $56,904. Revenues are down $37,472. So the net decrease to the county is $19,432. Because of the revenue decrease in environmental health, the health director recommended the elimination of one environmental health inspector, who we will have already notified of a RIF, and she'll be eligible for those
Man, back up
benefits.
one.
Yes, sir.
Public safety. Another need. The $891,000 incentive.
Yes, sir.
I think we discussed it on our previous meetings that we would run an audit through the tax department. How was that? I don't remember the details, but I thought we were gonna do a checkoff before we granted these things. Is that still in play?
I don't think the board actually voted on that, but we went ahead and started the process anyway. And Dwayne is working on that with Mary Yao. And actually, we're making a much greater detailed report, because we're also looking at what their existing tax base is, what they're paying in totality, if they've appealed any values or anything like that, so we can see the net effect the entire company has on the tax base.
That's just starting with this tax year?
Actually, we were doing the current fiscal year.
Right.
We started with the current fiscal year.
And at the appropriate time, I'd like to move that we formally adopt that policy. And if this is the appropriate time, there's a motion. But wherever you want.
Let's state the motion once more for the benefit of those of us who
Well,
need to hear it.
He wants the tax department to do an audit on an annual basis of all incentives paid out to make sure that the value within their incentive agreement has actually been created and kept on the tax scrolls
Actually, before the incentive's paid out, right?
before the incentives are paid.
it removes that obligation from EDC board to make it a more formal pattern or policy for the board of admissions.
Can it be written in the package that we do, or a normal package for EDC, that it's in there, that it's not a, the company understands that this is the way it is, it's gonna happen this way.
Which would be part of our policy.
Right, it's our policy that if you're getting incentives, we're gonna come check behind it and make sure that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Ms. Mentor has me on to Human Services and Social Services. This was one of the most difficult departments from a budgetary standpoint to understand this year. We spent quite a bit of time in this area. Expenditure increases of $58,951, revenue decreases of $208,155, for a net increase in county costs of $267,106. $54,510 of the increase is related to required retirement increase, and $17,083 of revenue reduction attributed to state cuts for administration of child welfare and adult service programs. Ms. Potts asked for 3 new positions, and I did not recommend any of them. What essentially is happening in social services is the state is capping certain programs, and since they're entitlement programs, when the county makes payment, we don't, after a certain point, we no longer get reimbursement for that program. So it's a transfer of state responsibility to the county. And what I was trying to do within the budget was trying to find out exactly how much of that transfer was not only occur for next fiscal year, but was occurring in this current first fiscal year, because it is currently going on. And the way they track everything, it's almost impossible to figure it out. You have to ask the people in DSS that track it every day to give you those reports. So it's difficult for me to only believe that we're losing $17,083 in revenue reduction to those programs, when on paper it's the net increase to the county is $267, and all of it is program generated except for the $58,000 or $54,000 in for the requirement. I mean, for the retirement requirement.
Can we do a cap at the same percentage of
Actually, no, sir, we can't. So, you know, I put in the document, after we passed our budget, they took $600,000 in ADM. They transferred some of the jail expenditures to us for the inmates that we were housing for them, no longer were making payments to us. And then the DSS were the big hits, and we're figuring we're close to $1 million in the current fiscal year that the state impacted us.
So they're not paying us anymore for housing inmates?
It changed from 45 days to 90 days, or if I've got it right. We're housing, if they're sentenced, they decide to keep them here instead of transferring them to central prison. They're here, they no longer pay for them to be here. So if you get like a 90-day sentence, they're not going to ship you to one of the state facilities for that 90 days. They're going to leave you here. Whereas before they were paying the bill, now they're not.
So there's no control for us whatsoever?
We just, whatever they, yeah.
As far as the inmates staying here.
It's a way for,
What they've done essentially is to say, on the 46th day we take it, they're now saying, if the offense only calls for 90 days, then it's all yours.
and they're going to leave them here.
At 91 days. So then it's up to the judicial department.
Yes.
Didn't we get something from our association not too long ago that had some other kind of a charge or something? The way I read it, sounded like they were going to charge, General Assembly was going to charge us for something.
I can't remember that. We did get something.
Had to do with jails and prisoners.
Yeah, we're going to be charged per day for, I can't remember, or what, if they had, for the safekeeping, if they were holding our people at safekeeping, they had upped the rate.
They're going to charge us.
And we would already be getting charged for that, but now they're notifying us the rate's going up.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yes.
What about the light coming in? How does that stand?
I have a proposal from our, from an engineer that I contacted, the engineer that, architect that repaired the lock system in the jail the last time. And, I'm reviewing it right now. May present it to y'all at the next meeting, but yes, we're going to have to bring some light into
Each jail cell, right?
8 that are in the high security area, which we need those. Move on to
Okay.
education,
Yes.
which it's been a hot topic. $19,242,720 total education budget. Now that includes both the Lee County schools and CCCC. 0.68% decrease from last year, makes up 31.7% of the general fund. That does not include the debt that's associated with it. 42.11 cents on the tax levy. They are now officially more than 50% of our tax levy. Lee County School System current expense request was $15,445,974. It is recommended that we fund $15,178,050, or a $200,000 increase, 1.34% increase to them. Lee County School System capital outlay request was $2.4 million. We're recommending $1.6 million. You will notice, as we've discussed in the workshop, that they project the lottery proceeds at $1.4 million. We project them at $1 million. If the proceeds actually come in over $1 million, they end up requesting more. So, part of the difference right there is the $400,000 difference between what they estimate and what we estimate.
They come in low, do they also get the request? I mean,
They get whatever we receive. Lottery's doing pretty well right now. We still have the $207,654 for the pod units at the high school. $396,177 of county funds will support capital outlay, and we're taking $350,000 of capital dollars to apply towards the capital reserve fund, which was part of our agreement.
John, do we own those pods after the lease runs out?
Yes, ma'am.
We do. How much longer is on the lease?
We have this coming year and the following year. We have 2 more years of payments.
And who has control over them at that point?
They do.
Schools, because the agreement is between them and the schools.
Wow.
Same thing with the community college. Now they have 3 more years on their pods. Yes, sir. Oh, I thought you were going to ask something. This is the spreadsheet I like to show that shows the growth in what we contribute. It includes the debt service, although the percentage and the numbers are slightly different, and there's still a growth from fiscal year 2010 to 2011 to the Lee County Board of Education. And that's quite an increase over the last 8 budgets, 9 budgets. Community college, current expense request of $2,241,465. We recommended $2,218,259, or $23,205 increase. Their capital outlay request was $312,670. We recommended $189,070. $150,000 for the pod unit at WB Wicker, almost $15,000 for kennel fencing. That was something that they were written up on and that we need to do. And obviously, if they're having problems with their lift station on campus, that needs to be repaired.
Let me ask you, go back to the pods. You know what the life expectancy of one of those units might be offhand? Or just, as soon as the paper on the Darrell piece?
Contemplation, whenever we contemplated going into the pods, is that they would be used at the high school, hopefully for the duration of that lease, and then depending on the process of the renovations project, that they could be moved to potentially be the startup of another elementary school or moved to another facility to be used. So I mean, the useful life is bound to go beyond the 4 years that we're leasing it based on those assumptions.
Well, when I consider the possible growth for the community college and the closing out of these pods, it would seem to me that we want to put on the table some discussion between those 2 boards to possibly, if they're not using an elementary, to shift them over to the community college or something along those lines. Early college, yeah. Okay. Right. But I think there ought to be some dialogue early on before we get to this payoff. Thank you.
I'll let Ms. Minter just explain this one, but I'll do it. Our total debt service for next year is $7,437,996. $6,701,898 is for the Lee County Board of Education related debt, or not over 90% of our debt payment next year. We're acknowledging $1.224 million from the quarter cent sales tax proceeds, using $723,179 from capital reserve fund and debt service. And this last bullet point is what Ms. Minter wanted me to point out to you, is the $774,631 from investment earnings of the 2006 COPS will empty the 2006 COPS fund, project fund. So for the last 2 years, and as I was discussing earlier with the board, and we didn't get to this at that time, but when we talk about our debt service and taking revenue and allocating it towards our specific payments, we never really allocated anything for the Sand Lee Middle School. And for the first couple years of the big payment, we've been able to use funds that were left over, interest earnings, to cover part of that payment. And that money runs out this year, in next fiscal year. So we start the following year with a $775,000 gap in debt service, in addition to the $600,000 the state took. So, as you know, we already know going into the 2011-2012 budget, we have a gap. Did I explain that well enough, Ms. Minter?
You did an excellent job.
So she wanted you to be aware of that, and yes, that is one of our major concerns for the following year. Moving on to the solid waste fund, we're proposing that the rates stay the same. The fund is projected to make profit this year. So the closing of the landfill and most of the expenses that have gone with that is, you know, it worked out well to go ahead and close it. So now we're going in a positive direction there. As we said, the public hearing is scheduled 2 weeks from now. Budget adoption is scheduled for June 7th or later. And I'll be happy to answer any questions of the board.
Just to keep this on track, let me read the recommendation, which is to accept the county manager's recommended budget and set a public hearing on the recommended budget, consider additional budget workshop to review budget in detail. That would be calls for a workshop on May the 10th at 3 p.m. And so we had this calls for a workshop possibly on the 10th, a public hearing on the 17th, and then the budget adoption on June the 7th. And I think that a motion would be in order to accept this, and then we can open it up for any level of questioning you want to do. But I want to make clear, it's my understanding that today's action is the acceptance, the official acceptance of the manager's budget. And then there will be opportunities for us to further discuss this today or any other time, to have a public hearing, and then in June to finally approve the budget with all of the changes, if any, that would be brought to it. So is there a motion that we accept this as?
Before you take a motion,
Okay.
you mentioned the 10th.
Well, it says right here, and maybe this is something that says budget calendar calls for a workshop on Monday, May the 10th, and we may or may not might want to strike that. Or
That was just part of the original calendar.
Yeah.
We normally have a workshop in between. I went ahead and put it in there because it's still on the budget calendar. So
Okay.
you can do it, or you can, since we already had the workshop, you can
Yeah.
just say we're not going to do it, and then
Okay.
set another workshop after the public hearing if the board wants to.
If there's an amendment to that, is that what I'm hearing? Okay, so amended. It's been recommended that we scratch the 10th and set another workshop at a time and place a little bit later after the public hearing. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Is there any further question or discussion?
You know, I know that our staff knows it and board members know it, but I would feel more comfortable with a statement somewhere that indicates to the general public that because of the lack of control that we have dealing with the state and the federal government, that these budgets are subject to change on any given day, depending on, what the state, especially what the state does. And it can be done in the public hearing notice or in response to folks that are sending in requests for funding. But I think it's unfair for the board for people to think that we can just do whatever it is that we want to do, because a lot of it will be dictated by what we wind up picking up from the state or federal government.
Any other comments? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? There is no opposition. Thank you very much. The final item under new business is a discussion in reference to Model Code of Ethics for North Carolina local elected officials. Mr. Crumpton is going to speak to us about this. Thank you, Mrs. Minter.
Getting out of the way on this one. We've been discussing the ethics policy, I think, for almost a year, and reviewing our policies, which are attached in here, and and I've included the sample ethics policy from the School of Government. Also, there is a draft code of ethics that Mr. Hoyle is kind of partial to, that came from the Association of County Commissioners back in 1991. The ethics policy has to cover the 5 points, which are to obey all applicable laws, the need to uphold the integrity and independence of the board member's office, to the need to avoid impropriety in the exercise of board members' official duties, the need to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and number 5, the need to conduct the affairs of the governing body in an open and public manner. Those 5 items are the minimum items that have to be addressed in a policy, and obviously with all the other information that's in here, there are suggestions of what else should be in there, but this is really the board's policy. And for Mr. Hoyle, Ms. Lee, and myself, we're looking for some guidance before we write the policy of what y'all would like to see in it, and any other comments you might have.
Okay. Let me suggest the following options for y'all's consideration. That we, as recommended here, that we review this information and that we bring to the table here or at another place our thoughts and our recommendations that would help complete a new writing of an ethics policy. The School of Government, I believe, recommends that we have a workshop to discuss the various issues and desires of the commission before we adopt a new and the first time commissioners ethics policy. And so I wanted to ask if you wanted to get into it today, or if we would like to set a date for a workshop, or we could, after this meeting, seek out a date that's mutually satisfactory sometime, hopefully between now and June 30, that we could take this in earnest. And then the other option might be that we could, if you wished, send our thoughts and ideas to Mr. Crumpton to be shared with Mr. Hoyle if there's something that you particularly wish to have in a new policy, to let that be known, because it's my reading of this material here that we have the sort of very basic fundamentals of putting together a policy that probably would pass muster. In other words, those 5 bulleted areas. There's from the Institute of Government. And so the makings of a policy are here and in place, and also through the North Carolina Council or North Carolina Commission, Association of County Commissioners. So we've got the makings here of a policy, and it's sort of how you want to come at it. If you want to get at it, start today or give yourself some time to wade into this. It could be fairly simple, or it could be rather complicated, or complex, depending on how we want to go at it. But it does behoove us to do something and to come out with a policy, and we're required to do it, of course, by January the 1st of next year. So your input would be appreciated right now.
Really do my recommendations to the county manager.
Mr. Kelly says he would prefer for each one of us, or he would like to present his recommendations to the county manager, who would sort of pool this information and then begin to draft and put together our policy, to which we could then be given copies, and then we would have a chance to look at that, comment on it, change it, or do it whatever we wish to. Is that something that others would like to do?
Do we have a copy of the association ethics policy so we can kind of compare both?
Yeah, that was the one that Mr. Hoyle recommends from 1991. It should be in there.
And
This is the new one.
I'd like
This
to-
is by the school government.
I'd like to see us take that one and modify our own code of ethics.
164. Right.
okay. Well, that would be part of the process, and we could also send our recommendations to Mr. Crumpton for anything that we would like to see highlighted. And I believe there was some discussion about trying to get a policy from a city or two or county or two that has just recently put this together. Is that correct, Mrs. Lee?
I requested one from Guilford County, but they haven't responded yet.
Okay, so one has been requested from Guilford so that we can look at how it's shaking out in some of these other counties that are under the same deadline.
Do we have a timeline to get our?
Would you like to recommend a timeline?
I think probably to get our recommendations in to the county manager's office by our next meeting. Is that fair?
Is that satisfactory?
We've got the rest of the year for this, right?
Okay, okay. But how about by our, no,
I'm
that's
thinking
true.
about budget and
Well, that's
Get
true.
that out of the way.
Okay, by our
August or something.
July.
July the 1st? By the first meeting?
I'm
Gotta
just saying,
give them time.
Give ourselves enough time to get past budget,
Yeah.
and then
July 1st, I'll be at dinner.
Okay, what, Mr. Pascal can't do it in July.
Okay. All right, well, would you want to say we would try to have it resolved by the end of August. Would that be fair?
Yeah, because I think you gotta give the state time to pass their budget and see what impact that might have on us. But I would submit that they can work on it as they see fit, as they're working into their schedule.
And people can send their input to Mr. Crumpton or have discussions or whatever, so that this starts to come together when you can do that. But we'll set the meeting in August as our deadline to have, our first look at a draft. Mhm. Is that satisfactory?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. The next item is the manager's report. Mr. Crumpton?
I don't have much, Mr. Chairman, but I do need to thank Ms. Minter and all of our staff for all their help on the budget. As I discussed in the workshop earlier, the departments that report to me, we did a quick pencil on it, but over the last 3 budgets, almost $5 million in reductions to help support the other agencies that we support, namely the schools and the sheriff and some other folks. So I think the staff has done yeoman work in the budget. And as it was said earlier, they've done it with a good attitude, which given these circumstances could be understood if they would have a bad attitude. But I appreciate all their help and their support, and I think our staff, they do a great job, and we don't thank them enough for what they do.
Mr. Crumpton, the budget will be available to be seen by the public at the library and what's the other?
In the clerk's office.
And the clerk's office.
We also have it online,
And we have it online for
so you
people,
can
for the
view it online.
citizens who would like to look at it. It is it's a fine piece of work, and it's frugal, it's thoughtful, and, we'll have some things to say about it as time goes on, and before we approve it finally, but it's really a first-rate piece of work, and I think, I agree the county has something to be proud of here in the people who put this together. Okay, then we'll go to commissioners' comments. Mr. Pascal? Okay, Mrs. Sherwood?
Just a couple things. I want to remind people to get out and exercise their right to vote tomorrow. And if nobody's tried the strawberries from Douglas Farms, you need to do that. They're awesome, they're big, they're sweet, so it's Highway 1 South. And the Lee County Living magazine, I looked through it, it's very well done. I have a couple of questions. Is this funded through ads, and who publishes it? Is this done through the chamber?
It's done by it's a partnership between the Herald, the Chamber, and the EDC. But I think that the Herald puts the lion's share into it.
And so is this intended to be a marketing tool for Lee County?
Yes, they do it once a
How is
year.
it distributed then?
Well, the first distribution was if you subscribe to the paper, you should have gotten a copy at your house. And then the Chamber and the EDC send it out to a list of folks that they already have in place. And then anybody else that wants a copy can get one from the EDC, the Chamber, or the Herald. And so they're trying to target folks to do it, but it's a very good piece.
It is. I was very impressed with it. And I know sometimes, you walk into some of the local restaurants, they have where people traveling through town will pull in. So I didn't know whether they would have an opportunity to pick that up and learn more about Sanford and Lee County just by eating in one of our restaurants or whatever. So.
The Chamber tries to get it out to their members, so not just the restaurants, but some of the other businesses.
That's all I had.
Ms. Dalrymple?
You do?
Okay. Mr. Owen?
I do have something I want to mention to the county manager. I visit the refuge center up on Carbon Road about once a week. Fences, somebody ran into the fence. I've been noticing it now for about 2 months. And some dead pine trees around it. It's need a little cleanup and a little repair work done up there. And the other thing I want to mention is you might want to visit Logan Farm. They got some pretty good strawberries.
So you got that ethics book ready yet?
I think they're making money by advertising.
And I had to hit a lick fire home there, but.
This was close to my house. That's the only reason I know about it.
Mr. Kelly?
I just wanted to say, reiterate, what a great job county manager and his staff and team have done. And regarding the last 2-3 budgets that we've come across, and it's easy. I've been here 4 years just about. You've got everything was riding high, and everybody, you had plenty of fund balance and money, and now when you don't, it makes you appreciate a really good county manager. I'm serious. I mean, because I've been across the state, and you've dealt with. I've dealt with county managers and seen county managers that had no clue about what the budget was. They take percentages and just apply it, here and there. So it's a testament to what he's been able to do in the short amount of time he's been here, and his staff, and not revolting after going through such. These are really tough cuts. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for, keeping the calm and being able to to ride out the storm, because, you know, better days will be here, and we'll be able to roll again.
Mr. Reed. Please don't revoke. Now that you heard that. I just want to ask for a financial breakdown for the one-stop clothing, just to see what it has actually cost us over the last few days. Ms. Kimball did send in an explanation of what was required by statute, and I appreciate that. But now I'd like to take a hard look at the numbers and see what it amounts to.
Thank you. And finally, this Friday, I'd like to remind all of the commissioners that at 12 noon, the Employee Appreciation Luncheon will be held at McSwain Center, and you're all cordially invited. So please, please go. Is there a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
It's been moved. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.